afternoon, councillors, and welcome to Water, Waste and Energy Committee meeting Thursday 8th of June 2023, and it's number 832. I just want to, we've got a full contingent of, we don't have a full contingent of committee, we have one apology, but I'll just welcome our visiting councillors, Councillor Pauline Young and Councillor Owen Jones, and welcome Acting Mayor Councillor Gates, who will be a committee member today, exercising her right. I have an apology from Councillor Castro. Would someone like to move that apology? Councillor Peter Young, seconded Councillor McDonald. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And if everyone's okay, I will start the confirmation of minutes of last meeting. We have other start items, 5.1, 6.1 and 6.2. Would anyone like to unstar any of those items or move the start items? Happy to move the start items, Councillor Tozer, and seconded Councillor McDonald. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. We have 6.3, item 6.3, which is in open, and Kathy and I believe Mariam is going to present as well. She's just coming through the door now. It's a quick trip from across the road. She was trying to get a park. This is 6.3, the Abbott Park Naturalisation Demonstration Project. Thanks, Mariam.
So thank you, councillors. This is Mariam Heshmat. She is our Executive Coordinator of Sustainable Planning. Her team has been running the water strategy and the implementation of a number of projects through that. And one of the projects that we're looking at is a demonstration project that delivers on some good outcomes in naturalisation of stormwater channels. So Mariam will give you a presentation on the project. The actual agenda item is to get endorsement to go on to the next phase, which is design and work out, detailed costs before we come back to bring that back to council. So I'll hand over to Mariam.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the time that you've given me to present the Abbott Park Channel Naturalisation Project. Before I move on to, is this the clicker? Okay, yeah. Before I move on to the actual project, I would like to remind ourselves of if this project actually fits in and align with our strategic intent and what we've actually promised the community to deliver. Our corporate plan, we promised that we will balance the city growth with our natural environment. And we have also promised the community that we will manage our resources for a sustainable future. And our One City theme, we also promised that we will address the challenge of climate change through practical and sensible solutions that deliver climate resilience. We also looked at our city strategies. We have a specific actions under the water strategy, but this project also delivers on outcomes of our natural city strategy and our stormwater management plan. Specifically on water strategy, we have shorter medium-term objectives where we've said we will deliver in partnership with the stakeholders a minimum of 2 demonstration sites, showcasing green and blue features, improve waterway access and integrated services. And we've also mentioned that we will deliver at least 2 demonstration sites that incorporate green objectives and multifunctional services. And in a sense, trying to achieve the water-sensitive outcomes that we've been talking about in the last 4 or 5 years. Just before I move on to the case examples of what this project is actually trying to achieve, our water strategy is trying to take us from being a sewage city, being a water city, and also from being a drainage city, all up into a water-sensitive city. What does it mean is, rather than just providing plumbing services to the city, we're trying to actually incorporate placemaking as well as achieving our outcomes which is drainage and flood management. Up there, you can see Holden Park, Brisbane. Hanlon Park, Brisbane. What it was a long channel, a concrete channel going in the middle of a park. What they did, they ripped out massive amount of concrete, and on the right-hand side you will see what they achieved. What it has done is, rather than a linear channel, concrete channel, which was only trying to get rid of the water as fast as they can, which is a very old engineering mindset, all the way to creating a pathway for water where you can create riparian zones where birds and the insects and all the native insects can actually thrive there, and also not only slow down the water and let it absorb in the ground and purify itself naturally, rather than having all the sediments running off and rushing into the cities and receiving environments, but also creating a space for public, especially kids, to interact with water, interact with their environment. We are also currently in the process of finalizing our climate change strategy, having projects like this where we actually plant trees and create opportunity for carbon absorption in a natural way is one of the best ways we can actually build that adaptation and resilience into our cities and communities. The second row, I have the small creek in Ipswich. On the left-hand side is what it looked beforehand, and on the right-hand side is what it looks like now. Public and community love this. Well, we don't have any of these examples in the Gold Coast at the moment, but we did go through a long list of channels across the city. We ended up shortlisting 10 channels, and we take them through a rigorous process for ranking through a multi-criteria assessment. As part of that process, we looked at community access, whether it's a popular location, whether this actually, from a hydraulic point of view, will make sense, asset life, stakeholders' acceptance, and all those criteria. And this area is called Parkwood, and the channel is at 340 meters of linear waterway. It's all concrete in the middle of a park called Abbott Park. Abbott Park is very popular among the community here, and we have a vision for this to potentially become our first case where we can actually learn. So it might feel, why do we actually rip out concrete, invest the money, and do this in a channel? We need to have one example for our engineers, our environmentalists, us all, to learn and see how these systems work, so that in future we can build this sort of thinking into our future design, and rather than actually using concrete, which also has a very large environmental footprint, amount of water and energy consumed to produce this concrete, is quite scary. So we're hoping to learn and then build this sort of design into our future. Just so one more slide, which is what I'm asking for. We're not asking to go and implement this project tomorrow. We're asking for the next financial year to be able to invest 160K into doing a more detailed assessment of the project, its prudency, efficiency, do the detailed site survey, conduct the architecture, landscape, what it can look like, better engagement with the community, and also confirm the multiple benefits of undertaking this project. And yes, so that's a pretty much proof of concept.
Councillor Gates.
Thanks very much, Chairman. You mentioned that a number of these drains exist throughout the city. How many concrete drains right throughout the city? Did did that form part of
I think
your...
thousands.
I mean, I know of many, and I just, for me personally, I would hope there was a ballpark figure of what the cost might be, given it's $160,000 for potential design, what a ballpark figure might be for the actual project itself, and then the ongoing maintenance. Because I have an issue with the ongoing maintenance of many drains in northern Gold Coast where we don't have concrete. We have exactly what's being proposed here, and they just get overgrown and then with weed, and then the office come along and spray them, and then they all die and go brown. And I'm telling you, that concrete drain with a water channel is far more appropriate than many of the water-sensitive urban design drains that I have in the north of the city. So I see what you're saying, and it sounds great, but if there's hundreds of these across the city and this is $160,000 for the design of one, are we kidding ourselves that we can actually afford to do this across the city?
Through the chair, it's not to go and replace everything right now. It's to show that it will work if we go through all the process and understand what you said, the maintenance costs and all those sort of things. It's when the next one comes up for a replacement, we don't just stock standard replace with a concrete channel if the area is appropriate to be looked at differently. You can't have this sort of thing everywhere. Like if you go down to Coolangatta where I live, there's a concrete channel that runs right past houses and there is no ability to do this sort of thing. The Small Creek one, for example, the part of the construction of that, there was a 5-year maintenance thing with the people who did the construction, and then after that, the weeds, there should be no invasive weeds because the maintenance of the channel has been undertaken for 5 years to ensure the establishment of the native species overwhelms the invasive species.
Kathy, do we have a cost on both those projects?
We do. So the estimate cost for the full construction is $1.6 million. And I agree with Councillor Gates that we are not proposing to go and replace all the existing channels. We're just using this as a case study. And I agree there are examples where the maintenance cost of a natural solution has been more, but the thinking has moved on a long way since we built those. There are now native species that actually start to take root and doesn't actually have as much weed or maintenance issues. So again, this is to learn from that and see if it actually works. And then in future, we don't build concrete drains, we build more natural solutions.
So I'm a bit perplexed at why we don't have examples that we can look at that are in existence where concrete hasn't been used in newer developments. Have we looked at drainage systems that run through our parks in the north where concrete has not been used?
Not to do this sort of stuff, which is retrofitting old, and the ones that have gone up in the north, we had no, I suppose, control over what went in them and those types of things. Like we could go in and survey them to see what plants are there, but we're not sure, like our team isn't sure that it actually was done in the new thinking that's been around and the new ways that have been evolved when Smalls Creek and Hanlon Park, like these two are relatively new. Small Creek is now up to stage 3, I think it is, for the next part of the creek to be changed out. So we're learning from the Ipswich guys around the maintenance and what they believe is issues and not issues as well. So I can't say that we can use our northern Gold Coast ones as a prime example because it probably wasn't set up the way it needed to be set up to understand the full realm of
I just
the
have
implications.
one more question, and that is, does the existing concrete drain that is being explored at the moment require replacement, and if so, why?
Okay, we did have several engagements with the stormwater team to discuss that. The way the channels work, actually, they don't need a replacement of the whole length pretty much ever. They can actually run for life. Every time a block of concrete fails or there's a crack, they just patch it. So we tried to find a channel that was in a very poor condition to use that as an option, but there is no such a thing. So it's very different from a pipe. But the pipe condition gets really bad, and then they have to replace the whole length. In this case, they've been just patching. But there were some safety concerns around this channel specifically, because it was in the middle of the park and it was a trip hazard.
I just have a concern that perhaps you could ask. Councillor Young has just said he knows of a few shorter ones, and I think if this is just for a trial to see, and we're not anticipating whole-scale replacement of concrete drains, just a new method when another opportunity comes forward, why don't we do a smaller one, not a one that's going to cost a couple of $1 million? I mean, I think we have to be really mindful of the pressures facing everyone right now. And if we go back to the photograph of the existing drain, it's not unsightly. I mean, clearly what we have seen on the newer ones is a superior outcome. I don't dispute that for a minute, but I think we have to be very careful about replacing a drain that's in good working order, except for a little bit of patching, that goes 340 metres long. I certainly won't be able to support that, but thank you for answering my questions.
Councillor Bowden-Lundins, followed by Councillor Hamill.
Thanks,
And
Chair.
Councillor Young.
And yeah, had a couple of words. I actually did suggest to City Assets about another drain similar to this one through Labrador, simply because it's critically failing in a number of spots. I think it's had 3 failure points in the last 12 months. Each of them haven't been repaired properly. They've just been fenced off with hazard fencing for about a year now. I've been asking why the maintenance hasn't been undertaken, that sort of thing, and ultimately it's come down to the cost to repair it in its current state. So they're saying that in itself is extremely costly. I asked about this conversion option. Unfortunately, it didn't have the space either side to be considered in this project. Yeah. But from looking into these projects in other parts of Australia, the reporting I've seen on them is that the maintenance costs are significantly less than maintaining of these type of drains. That's my question, Chair. Is that's the expected case?
What you just said, yeah.
So it's expected that the conversion is significantly cheaper long term than trying to. Okay.
If it is designed properly and built right, yes, it's significantly less.
Okay, I think that's a good outcome, and obviously all the other benefits of urban cooling and usability and visual amenity and those sort of things are all great. I guess similar kind of ones where Councillor Gates asked about projects in the north of the city. I don't know about ones in the north, but in Arundel Springs, there was a developer-contributed drain there that was so well done that it's formed part of our conservation estate, and the project they did won national awards and that sort of thing. The only maintenance I'm aware of that happens there is, I think every second year there's a bit of the Salvinia, as dredging the word, but yeah, that happens. Harvesting, that's the word, every couple of years. So it's very well done. There's not much maintenance that goes in there. It's beautiful. It's great for the wildlife, and people have been really receptive to it. I know that there's been, because I've seen similar projects and I've spoken about them online previously, and I've had a lot of residents who have been very supportive of the concept. This park in particular, and this drain in particular, there's been a lot of resident concerns about the drain, to the point where I've had multiple requests to actually fence the entire length of this drain. The photo, I think because of the angle, doesn't really show, but that wall is about 60 centimetres, so it's a considerable drop, and then either side of the drain, the grass is probably about another half a metre. So ends up with quite a drop. I've had parents talking about kids riding their bikes into the drain and that sort of thing. So is concern about this drain, and when the officer suggested would I be supportive of this project, I think it's a great one, and obviously not just for this area. I think if there's parks that are being, the usability is interrupted in this kind of way, I think it's good, and it does show residents that we understand and we are having thoughts to the environment and the improvements long term rather than just short term vision.
Councillor Hamill.
Madam Chair, through a separate project, it was suggested by me from officers to go up and visit Hanlon Park. It was in regards to Dixon Reserve and what that project's going to look like in the future. So they suggested I go up to Hanlon Park and have a look at what had been done there, because probably before visiting that site, I would have shared a lot of the concerns Councillor Gates has raised today, but I have to admit, after visiting Hanlon Park and seeing on the ground what they've actually achieved there, it was fairly mind-blowing and fairly impressive, especially to see, I think on the Saturday I visited, probably 600 people actually using the green space that gets created, so full of picnic spots, full of kick and play areas. They incorporated playgrounds into higher spots, so this wasn't just about converting a concrete drain here, this was about opening up open green space, because what you can't see on the edge of this is that is areas where unit development was occurring. So there was no ability to buy more land to deliver open green space. So by using what was just a desert of grass and a concrete drain, they've got playgrounds and picnic shelters all through this. This photo is only probably 5% of the entire site. It's a massive area. I'm keen to see what opportunities there are for this in the Gold Coast. It doesn't fit everywhere, so after visiting Hanlon and doing the reading on the one at Ipswich and other projects like this around the country, it is happening in other places. It doesn't work everywhere. There are a lot of reasons why a lot of places get ruled out pretty quick, so I don't think that we're going to see a mass of these kind of projects, but where they could work, not only do they deliver fantastic water quality improvements, but the green space opportunities it opens up for residents, especially in parks, in areas where we've got targeted growth areas and we can't go buy more land necessarily to provide that open green space for amenity. I think it's well worth looking at, having an example in the city. So if you haven't detected, I'm supportive of the money to go to the next step, but additionally supportive of continued pressure on our friends in city assets to get some of the poor outcomes of drainage networks in the north and other parts of the city under control as well.
Councillor Pauline Young, followed by Councillor Peter Young.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And pretty much along the same lines as Councillor Hamill, I've been fortunate enough to have one of my closest friends lives near Hanlon Park, so I actually went for the consultation when they all went, saw the hundreds of community members come in. It was a barren park with a drain going straight through it that you never saw activated. And to confirm what Councillor Hamill was saying, I've been there on days where there's hundreds of people in that park and the kids are doing the water play, the activations of the playgrounds around it. When there is a flood event, I have seen it where you cannot see any of the vegetation in that park at all, and within 24 to 48 hours we are back to that and people are back in the park. So it is wonderful to see that all the planting that they've put in there is able to withstand those sorts of events, and people are to use the park. And again, for Councillor Baldwin-Lumsden, he has brought forward the lack of green space or the usable green space within his division, and to have a park like this that is just a drain at the moment, if we can activate that park. And again, in support of, I spoke to the officers quite extensively about it, and the maintenance costs are significantly reduced, and also that the residents within the area are taking a lot more pride within that park. So they are noticing that residents are coming on board and they're doing even their own clean-up groups and things like that. So the bike paths and the water play and the the whole activation, and it is a huge length between, and it has a park run that goes through it and that. So, no, it doesn't suit everywhere. I can't think of anywhere in my area that I would do it, like I would nominate, but with that type of park there, like I've watched that over the last 5 years, and they did quite a bit of consultation on it. They talked about the costs and that, but it's delivered an activation to that area that has seen a substantial increase in the use of the park. So I could actually see myself supporting something like this. Thank you.
Councillor Peter Young, followed by Councillor Hamill.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, it's a great outcome that's being sought here, but I just wonder about the selection of the site. If we've got some kind of matrix whereby we can evaluate sites for entertaining if they're able to be considered for future treatment, because I can think of lots of places where we've sought to do this in the past and it's a wreck, or we haven't sought to do this and it needs it, as well as the case in Parkwood. I don't deny that would be a much better outcome than it is now. But I mean, one of the objectives identified here is sustainably using our resources. So I've got a park in Pack Pines where I'm asked to fund the removal of all the play equipment so we can get drainage in underneath, and it's just crazy. And the cost of that's $160,000, which is the same as this, I note. So I'm a bit worried about how we've chosen this site and if we've got a process that we can deliver.
Yes, is that okay? Yes, Councillor Young, we did have a process and a matrix for assessment, and if you have seen the documentary that was showcased on Hannon Park on ABC,
No.
the person who actually talks about this project, we chose him. He's the CEO of Stormwater Australia, and one of the most experienced people in this space, and we asked him to actually review our assessment and our business case. And he did review and supported the site selection and how we came up with this one. Happy to share that business case if required.
So other sites were considered?
Absolutely. We looked at hundreds of them, and the short list was 10. One of the main reasons that this park was selected is, number one, for these projects to be successful, like Hannon Park, it requires community access, it requires visibility. If it is somewhere that people are not going to use it enough, or there is not enough population around it, then it won't be fit for purpose. But the second one was the space. There were many drains that required more maintenance and could have been perfect, rather than going and investing in concrete to do it there. But they didn't have the minimum of 3 metre space on each side to be able to do this. And my understanding is that Abbott Park is very popular among the community.
Okay, I've just thought of about 15 places like that. So can you provide me a copy of that assessment of
Absolutely.
the different locations?
I think we'd all probably like a copy of that.
And through the chair, Councillor, if you would like to send through your list, we can put them on
Absolutely.
a list for discussions with our city assets partners for any future things.
Sure, they're already part of your assessment.
Councillor Hamill was next, and then Councillor Gates.
Sorry, Madam Chair, there was one part of what I spoke about before that I forgot to add in, and that is one of the other key drivers for Hanlon Park is that it forms part of one of the main cycle routes through Brisbane, and there was a series of dangerous pinch points. I can't think what road it is that runs near this, but where there was no ability in the road reserve to get a dedicated cycleway. So part of this project delivered that cycleway option off the road to improve the active travel links as well, which I know has been something that has been raised with me by the planning team in the traffic area about some of the older subdivisions in the city where footpath connections and bikeway connections weren't necessarily the high up the list, but there are reserves running through that we don't have to necessarily put footpaths and bikeways out on roads, that we could do links through areas like this to get active travel outcomes as well. It's a much bigger concept, and I think we're all appreciating, and would encourage all councillors to look at that ABC documentary, and there is a heap of other reports have been done on Hanlon Park now. If you Google it, there's 100 of them. But you couldn't beat going revisit to this to actually understand the concept. Very worthwhile.
Councillor Gates, followed by Councillor
Thank you, Chair. Just through you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't this require the 3 metres either side for vegetation, which takes up parkland rather than provide more? I mean, we've heard a lot about the improvement to Hanlon Park, and I don't think we're comparing apples with apples here. I think we're comparing apples with oranges, because it's certainly not a bike route either. I mean, doesn't it take more space, more parkland to provide that outcome than currently exists?
True, Madam Chair. You're right, we're going to take up the 3 metres, but the 3 metres will be interactive. So actually public can, through those 3 metres, interact truly with the environment. If you see, a lot of the parks we have in the city are just grass. There's no shade. There's nothing to interact with. There's nothing for people to do with it. This actually provides the kids an opportunity to go and play with water, play with the mud, play with the soil. And there will be multiple points. And as Councillor Hamill said, this photo doesn't actually do justice. I wish we could play the video here. There are multiple points, even with wheelchair, that people can actually go and interact with the waterway and enjoy that cooling effect.
So are we going to take the slope out of the existing park? Are we going to do earthworks to make it flat so that people on wheelchairs can actually go into a proposed revegetated area?
That will come out through the next design phase as to what's achievable on that site.
Okay.
This is all around, the current paper is all around asking for endorsement to go to the next phase, which is a better detailed look at design. The current designs have been on paper. You need to go out and actually do, slope tests, soil tests, geotech tests, all those types of things, so you can work out width, depth, how much of a slope you can take out. Can you make the slope, the batter, slightly less? It's all around what you do on that site, and you'll still end up with parts that are green that don't have trees or plants on it, but it's around putting a nice track through that so that people can walk through that and still interact.
Councillor Tozer,
So my question
followed
is,
by Councillor Bowden-Lumpton.
yeah, I mean, so it occurs to me as a dad who plays near the local soccer field that has a concrete drain through it, parents don't play next to the drain generally. Like they give themselves 3 or 4 metres from the drain anyway, if there is green open space. So it's kind of dead space anyway, just looks grassed instead of quite beautiful. My question is actually, you said there was 100 listed locations potentially. Is that something you could potentially provide to us just so we can have some consideration for future projects? I've got a number of large concrete drains where this sort of thing's been done.
Through the chair,
Albert loves concrete. The Albert Shire loves concrete.
Through the chair, we'll provide the long list that we looked at and the matrix that was the assessment.
That'd be great.
That would be good.
And could it be separated just by division? I'm not as interested in other divisions as...
Yes, we'll separate them by division.
Don't get me wrong, Councillor Gates I'm sure has lots of drains, but I don't need to know what's going on in Division 3.
Okay, Councillor Bowden-Lumsden, followed by, who had their hand up?
No. Thanks, Joe. I was just going to actually just address Councillor Gates' question about the space and the usability and stuff, that rather than playing in the cesspit picture 53, the Hanlon Park image shows that it becomes a usable space rather than, that was all I was going to...
Yeah. Councillor Owen Jones.
So I don't know the area. So Councillor Bowden-Lumpton, is it close to an area that gets mosquito complaints?
Not particularly. Wildlife-wise, it connects to Brushwood Ridge Reserve, so there's been a lot of wildlife. So I haven't got mosquito complaints, no.
Yeah, so to me, if it's going to be explored, I'm actually also interested in all of the unintended consequences. I have an area not dissimilar to this in Rugby Park at Helensvale, wraps around down to the Coomerall wetlands. So we get complaints about mosquito breeding, etc. And we also infrequently get complaints about what council's going to do about the snake population, being immediately adjacent to Coomerall wetlands, to which we explain that we don't train the snakes. But I look at that and think I'd be really interested in knowing, whether or not we've thought through from a whole of city perspective as to what the unintended consequences of it might be, and in particular around things like mosquitoes and the movement of animals that the residents are then going to complain. I look at it, and to me, within 2 weeks of it, being 2 months of it being completed, somebody would be complaining about the wrong type of things going into the park.
I think the positive part is, so that area is the area that gets fogged quite regularly. So because it is so close to the Arundel wetlands, it doesn't get the aerial treatment, but we often have the utes drive through actually all the perimeter streets of this park and gets fogged. So there's treatments in place, and I think the lack of complaints is probably actually mostly due to how proactive our vector and biosecurity guys are in that space, because this area is surrounded by a lot of acreage properties as well that have lots of water flow through, ponds, lakes, lagoons, all those kind of bits and pieces, and again, haven't had the complaints, and I think that is because of how effective our vector and biosecurity team is in that mosquito space.
Okay. Any other questions, councillors? Anyone like to move the item? Councillor Ryan Bailey.
Happy to move it, Chair.
And seconded by Councillor Tozer. All those in favour? All those against? Did you want your name registered? Can you register Councillor Gates' name as against? Thanks. That's carried, supermajority. Councillors, we do have another item. We have another item on the agenda that's enclosed, but we also have two presentations. One's in open and one's in closed. So we might do the presentation in open now, and then we can go to closed and deal with the item and the presentation and the GB item. Yes.
In open, yeah. Before you.
And welcome to Director Paul Heaton.
Well played, Kathy. Welcome, Director.
Did you not chair that last one because you didn't like it?
Paul loves spending money. It's what he lives for.
Our presentation is just an update on our green organics project, and welcome.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair. We're very close to roll out of the green organics service, so we just wanted to provide you all with just an update of where we're at and what's coming in the next few months. So we've spent a lot of time over the past few months doing a lot of data analysis, trying to making sure that we're delivering bins to the right properties in the right places. This is the green waste expansion, so we've broken it down by division for you so you can see what's coming. Division 1 will have the... Division 1 gets a prize. So, yeah, it has been a significant process going through. We've pulled out all the properties between 250 and 5,000 square metres. Properties within a CTS, we've individually analysed each of those properties to make sure that they have more than 25 square metres of green space, so that we're not delivering bins to properties that just have a concrete backyard. So, yeah, as a result of that investigation, we've pulled 550 services from the delivery going forward. So,
can we ask questions as we go, Chair? Yes. So that's the number that's left over after you've done those filters.
Yes.
Up there. To me, it would be helpful if we could see, and I don't know whether it's coming, but the number of properties in the division, the number that currently have green bins because they've opted in, and then this number.
Yep.
Does that make sense? So
yep.
I think that would give us a clearer idea of the number that haven't been, also that the number that have kind of been excluded because they don't fit into the model that we're going down, if that makes sense.
So help me understand, this graph is the people in, or the number of residences in a given division that have a green bin?
no.
Right, okay, so that's...
This is this is the number of properties we're rolling a bin out to.
Okay, and yeah, so to add to Councillor Owen Jones' request, could we add a column that says, here's the people who have
Sure.
a total number, and also could you have another column that says total number of available properties that could have a green bin, just so we can start processing that take up. That would be really helpful for us from a planning point of view.
Certainly. So this may not be easily viewable for you, but yes, we've broken it down by suburb there. So currently we've had very few requests for exemptions, 37 to date. 4 of those were approved. A lot of the exemptions are people who weren't included within the expansion anyway, so people whose properties were too big or too small to start with.
There's whole suburbs missing from the list that we do. Let's say Pacific Pines. It's a reasonably large.
So I think you grouped. Yeah, it does look like it's missing.
We are going to get to Pacific Pines. We haven't ignored Pacific Pines, but...
Sorry, Chair.
I think that Division 2 probably has the largest number of residential properties that aren't in the waste collection area because of Hope Island and Sanctuary Cove.
Yes.
It'd actually be helpful if I could... I know that they're not our clients as such, but it'd be helpful if I could get an idea of how many have been excluded because they're not in the waste collection area. So,
certainly. Okay, I'll just give you a brief overview. So bin deliveries, we're aiming to deliver the bins on a customer's collection day, just to give them the best experience. They don't just have a random bin turn up on their curbside. So what we're intending to happen is the customer will go out to collect their waste bin and bring it in, and we'll have the green waste bin sitting there beside it. So that's the intention for the rollout going forward. So it could take a number of weeks for us to get through a suburb.
Thanks very much, Chair. I know that the availability of exemptions was really narrow, deliberately so. What happens though where people's homes, regardless of their size, physically don't have anywhere to place a bin? And there's many of them. I mean, my own home, it actually doesn't have that opportunity because there are different levels and steps going in, and the only place to store the bins is in the garage area, and there's already 2 there. So what are we... And I don't think that I'm going to be the only person who has that situation. So how are we going to manage all of the people that are going to come forward and say, we just don't have the capacity to store that bin, I'm sorry?
Maybe through you, Madam Chair, if I can answer that. And you're absolutely right. We started off with a very tight restriction criteria, and as Josh said, we've already done some validating on the ground of those sorts of things. Our expectation, and as Josh would talk about, the rollout is going to occur over a extended period. We absolutely expect, as we roll it out, despite the awareness and messages and everything else, there will be some people who say, what's this? What do I do with it? Where am I going to put it? Et cetera, et cetera. So we'd actually absolutely expect those calls to come in. As with the current criteria of exemptions, we will assess all of those on a case-by-case and on an on-ground basis, and take the bin away if it's just not practical or doable.
So
we expect a flow on as we roll it out, and we'll tidy that up as we go.
Okay, so I'm getting from that we're a little more flexible than had initially been proposed. So if someone were able to come forward and say, my property doesn't physically have the capability of an additional bin and, for example, I pay a gardener to take away all of my green waste because I don't have the capacity for a green bin, that might receive favourable consideration?
Absolutely, on a case-by-case basis. As we say, we started off tight because the intent was to make it, compulsory, and to get the best outcomes. But yeah, the guys are always pragmatic in terms of individual circumstances.
Okay, thanks very much, Director.
It was just a question about the collateral that arrives with the new bin. What do we tell the resident as the bin turns up?
Yes, so that's probably not going to...
We're giving them a bus as well. I was in particular interested in, and not dissimilar to Councillor Gates not having room, that suggestion of, you can opt down a size in the general waste bin, for example. So our opportunity to provide messaging, and even to the point of messaging around what can go in the recycle bin, is all part of that opportunity.
So yeah, we've got our green bin is going to have a QR code on the lid, because at some point we might transition to a FOGO service, so we don't want to hold ourselves just to green organics. We're going to have stickers on the front of the bin and on the lid explaining what the service is. They're easily removable stickers. They're not the type that are going to flake off over time. We're also providing residents with a booklet explaining what the service is all about and why it's important, for environmental reasons, for preserving landfill void space, and a number of other reasons, including levy. So we're really, we did our customer forums, and we did find out we had to explain more to the customer what the service was about, and we've gone out of our way to do that.
Are we changing bins on general waste? Are we changing lids on general waste bins that aren't red yet at the same time?
Through the chair, no, we're not.
Why?
At this stage. We're keeping the contractor just focused on delivery of the green organics at this stage, and also the state, or the Council of Mayors, is also looking at a program for mass changeover of lids in southeast Queensland that we'll look to engage in the future. But Paul, I don't know if you...
Through you, Madam Chair, the other opportunity is clearly, as we've discussed, and it's all voluntary, and as the waste levy comes in and everyone has the additional bins, clearly we see an advantage to customers and to the city that people would actually downsize clearly their waste bin. So, the combination of all these factors, we said it's not worthwhile at this point to do the changeover, but to let that settle in and then see how these other initiatives progress. Now, at some point, we may make the decision down the track if we don't get, when the scheme to change over, if that's going to be 5 years from now or something. And we don't get a lot of take-up of people saying, yes, I want to downsize my bin, we may follow up with an initiative at that point in time. But as Josh said, just in terms of keeping, the team and everyone focused on succeeding with the green bin, that's the call we made.
Yeah, so I think that's a mistake. And talking to someone who has been part of this for several more local government areas than probably some of your officers have, that it works better when you change the red lid at the same time, because the new red lid, because there's a lot of them, there's a lot of general waste bins in the city don't have the red lid on it. So the new red lid that goes on also has a chance to have the new sticker or a sticker on it explaining what should be going in general waste bins at the same time. And from a cost point of view, I can guess what it's going to cost per household for a contractor to deliver a bin. and the efficiency of having them change the lid while they were there versus doing anything in the future would have been much more cost effective. So I'm guessing this is already done, and I really thought from memory that the indication from the committee in the past was that we should do lids at the same time. But obviously that wasn't explicit in there somewhere and hasn't ended up in the contract, I'm guessing. So I think that's a missed opportunity.
But look, through the chair, happy to take that offline and just relook at it again and come back to you.
So this is just a overview of the activities that are planned over the next few months. So in June, or 12th of June, bins start arriving at Suntown. So they'll come in B doubles. We'll have a crew on site putting the bins together, ready for delivery in July. The JJ Richards trucks are ready, currently being wrapped in the design that the communications team has put together. So in June, we're going to be commencing engagement with residents, so that'll be radio, bus backs, billboards, and the delivery of that booklet I talked about earlier to the customers getting the green organics bin.
So that's communicating with customers where it's coming, where
Yes.
as in the customers that are going to be getting it. Are we also going to be communicating at the same time to the customers that won't be getting it?
Through the chair, I don't think we will be.
I think we're going to need to give consideration to that because so we all represent areas, for example, where there may be particular body corporates or whatever that are excluded for whatever reason. I think that we need to be really clear to the people that aren't getting it why they're not getting it, and there might be different reasons, but on one hand, if we're going out and doing the right thing and explaining to the majority of the suburb why we're changing and how it's changing and what does it mean for them, I think we also need to give some consideration to the residents that aren't part of that changeover and the rationale behind it, because otherwise there's going to be the potential for some confusion, and I think that it would help if we headed some of that off at the pass.
Certainly we can do that. Again, it's a much smaller number than who we're rolling out to, so I'm sure we can cater for that with an adjustment.
Sorry, the residents that do fit the criterion, we've gone in and looked at their property and found that they don't actually have that much green space. We are writing to them individually, so there is 500 of those, but properties outside the criteria we're not communicating with.
And I'm going to speak from my division. I think that it would be really helpful if our office staff were at least had the ability to quickly determine, who is or isn't. So whether or not that could be by way of system-wide, some type of recognition that the staff members could easily identify a property that isn't going to be getting a green bin, or if it's an old-fashioned, some type of spreadsheet or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that that's going to save some time because I think that there'll be calls that will come in because not every street's going to be the same. I think the opportunity for our staff members to be able to easily answer questions or take some of the residents straight away.
Councillor Peter Young.
Thanks. My question pertains to the previous slide, if you don't mind, Chairman. In this case, there's 9 properties identified for Clagarabar, which is a very vast, dominantly rural suburb. And to me, that just makes no sense at all, sending a truck out to get waste from 9 properties. And I wonder if I might have a look at the list and work with your folks about that, just in terms of efficiencies. And
it's also maybe relative to the other ones that don't currently have a green bin. So there might be a street where there's one that says that it doesn't have a green bin, but there's already 6 or 7 people on the street that have signed up in the voluntary scheme. Is that?
But we can look at that.
because it's a rural residential area, they have a bin service there. So I'd say that those 9 properties would be probably right near Silkwood, opposite Hiddenwoods Estate, where it is serviced almost like a rural residential area.
The case, if you could send me a list and I'll have a look at it, and if it makes no sense, I'll fight it.
Just before you go on, Josh, councillors, have any of you been contacted by any residents who don't want the bins, but they are eligible, they will get them, but they don't want them? Because I've had 2.
No.
And that came out, and that was after the initial rollout through here, after we approved it, and it was in the media for a little while.
I don't know, about 100 people from Springbrook.
Yeah, right. Well, I had 2.
They didn't want any bins though, so we just ignored them, sadly.
Okay.
You can catch that on the stream.
Through you, Madam Chair, again, I think and it was a long time ago now, when we rolled out the yellow bins, I think there was a lot of people who said, no, I'm quite happy just throwing everything into one bin. So it's part of a community transition, and again, as Josh said before, while we haven't got a signed off plan or whatever, this is a step towards food organics and green organics. So, we've just got to be careful that the city is trying to achieve good waste outcomes, reduce waste levy for the city, and better environmental outcomes.
That has been the easiest way to overcome objections when it comes to the bin service. When you start talking about the state waste levy and how the tonnage changes and how the mismanagement of waste disposal at the local transfer stations is increasing our state waste levy obligations, people start understanding, because generally the people who are objecting are relatively responsible with their waste disposal activity, and when they realise that it's not, that the thing's been implemented not because of their activity but because of irresponsible people using transfer stations and lifting our state waste levy obligations, they get it and they're like, okay, I can understand why that's happening. So that's right, yeah. So, but I think people failed to comprehend that in the first instance, and some of the members of my community who were pretty frustrated about getting bins, once you start having that conversation with them saying, well, actually, this is not something we're trying to impose upon you, we're actually just trying to lower our broader levy obligations. And that starts, the majority of people have responded relatively positively to that line of conversation.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, July, August, bin delivery to expansion customers, and we'll commence collections the fortnight after. So we'll get, JJ Richards have said they're already in a lot of the streets already, delivering the service, so whatever bins are out, they'll collect. By end of September, we hope we will have all bin deliveries completed, and October onwards will be focused on ongoing customer engagement and focusing on contamination.
And Josh, that rollout of bins, is it going to be largely by suburb?
Yes, so the feedback from Sulo, the contractor who's going to be managing the rollout for us, is that delivering the bins on a collection run is the best way to do it, so that people, they get their waste bins already out, they get their green bin delivered. There's,
is there a way that you can keep the divisional officers informed as to what the timing of that might look like? So again, I'm thinking about how the divisional officers can help with the, dealing with the communication, because there'll be a whole bunch of people that don't read what you've said, whatever you've sent to them, don't listen to any of the media, and suddenly they've got a green bin that they don't want, that they phone the office. So I think it would help if our staff at least had a heads up that it was happening this cycle or the next cycle, in regards to, this from a suburb level. And I think it just helps them know, it's happening, so that they can then respond as the calls do or don't come in.
I think the key message is it will happen over the coming month. So, yeah, it may take 2 or 3 weeks to get to each household, but it will happen. So, yeah, patience but we will get daily and weekly reporting from the contractor, but I'll find out if we can get a view as to what the weekly schedule
And will that be a report at a street level by the number, like by the house number where a green bin's been delivered?
Yeah, there will be that detail there. We were planning on providing a summary report as appropriate, just on percentage of each suburb which have been provided the bins.
Yeah.
We can.
I think it has the potential to be helpful, particularly in areas where somebody says, "I didn't get my bin," you know. And
what's happening?
To me, it's about facilitating you guys with the delivery, but also helping our staff with those answers. And like, I mean, even if the delivery is happening in July, it's going to only happen on 2 fortnights in July.
Yeah.
You know, so what does that look like?
Okay.
And then if they haven't, their neighbour got a bin, I didn't get a bin, all that type of stuff, you know.
Understood.
Chair,
So this is just an overview of some of the creative that'll be coming out in the coming weeks. So bus backs, bus shelters and billboards. So things won't go 100% to plan. There will be, you know, some customers that are missed, or a bin will be delivered to a customer that shouldn't get a bin. We've done our very best to get on top of it, but there will be issues that do occur with 74,000 bins being rolled out. We've funded through the project putting on 4 additional staff in customer contact for a period of 3 months to handle the additional volume of calls. So our suggestion is to direct the customer there in the first instance. We've also got a dedicated team on board focusing on this project alone. So we've got the contact details up there. If an issue gets escalated beyond what can be addressed by customer contact.
And Josh, will the councillors have consistent collateral, you know, for social media and the like that we can share?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes.
So I think it would be helpful if we were able to assist you, and that's, to me, that what's the timing of the rollout in our particular suburbs, because that might help us with, you know, our own messaging, you know, and some of that missing data about, you know, there are 9,000 services in Helensvale at the moment. There's another 3,000 coming. You know, It's not every house will get a new bin, but this is the reason why we're doing it. You know.
Okay. That should read council assistance is required. Councillor Hamill.
you're very correct. There's going to be issues. Do we have a KPI in the contract with Sulo for how quickly they have to return back to a property to fix something? So if we deliver 2 bins, which happens way too often, or we don't put one there, or after review one's be removed, do we have a KPI of will we back there within 2 days to remove that bin, or preferably a day even?
Yes, through the chair, we have Tom Burgess, one of our officers, will be working very closely with Sulo. Any issues that get raised, we'll try and get it through to them immediately so they can retrieve a bin as soon as possible. I'll get back to you on the exact KPI that we have in the contract, but yes, we definitely have, yeah.
Cool, that's good, because there will be problems, but it's also a chance for us to show quick response and action stuff, and turn that from a negative experience to a positive experience for our residents.
Yes.
And just secondly, on the back of what Councillor Owen Jones said, it should be easy to provide us with an idea of a plan that Sulo, I'm assuming, have got JJ's collection runs data, which is an overlay of our cadastral mapping. So if a typical waste truck picks up 1,800 bins in a day, they won't get to that whole 1,800 properties because they're not going to be able to get there as quick as the truck can. But they should be able to break it down and say, in this suburb on this run, so if you live in Pimpama and you get serviced on a Monday and this is this route, over the next 4 weeks, we're breaking this up into these 4 segments. Like, we should have a fairly good idea so we can answer those questions and look like, as Councillor Jones put it, our staff know what's happening, and that we know what's happening, that information will be there, and that would be handy to have.
Certainly. So just a quick reminder, this is just a step on our organics roadmap. So as you can, sorry?
Well,
yeah, I pinched that from...
It's quite artistic. I like what you've done there.
So yeah, we've moved on from promotion of the green organics opt-in service last year, obviously going to city-wide for a certain range of properties. 2024, we're going to be rolling out a high-rise food organics trial funded by DES. 24-25, we'll be looking at low to medium density properties where it makes sense to provide combined green organic services. And 2026 at this stage, we're looking at a FOGO rollout.
So did we get a grant from the state government for the food organics? You said it's being funded by DES.
The high-rise trial will be, yes. Yeah, we're putting in for a number of grants at the moment. Hopefully we'll find out soon. So.
Yes, it's taken a long time, isn't it?
Yes. I think my understanding is state budgets are approved in the coming weeks and we'll find out soon after that. So that's just a bit of further information on the projects I just described, but that's just a brief overview. If that's really good feedback, helpful for us to take on board. Is there any further questions? Yes.
Councillor Young, Pauline Young.
Thank you, and through the chair to Josh. With the rollout of these, of the green bins, that's likely to trigger people saying, well, if I've got a green bin, I might do the 3-bin changeover, like to do this set. Are we in a position to be able to do that at the time? Like a lot of people have probably got, you know, a biggish yellow bin and then they've got either a red top bin or still got that, but then that organics will come out whether they'll want to actually go to the bin set as showed on the first part of that slide. So potentially if they make that request, is that something that's going to be able to be serviced at the same time?
Through the chair, yes, we will be able to do it. Its timeframes may not be as responsive as we normally are for some of these changeovers. We will. We've got a separate crew coming in to do the green organics rollout, so we'll still have the Sulo team delivering new services and doing their existing workload. So we'll be able to do it. It's just fitting it into the existing rollout. We just want to keep that on track and keep it going on time. But yes, we'll be able to do it.
And a bonus. The other thing is, and I know with some of my residents, is that they get a nice shiny new green bin. They might start making applications for the other bins so that they all look the same, like they're all nice and new looking.
OCD.
Obviously, we'd look at, you know, whether the bins are damaged or whatever going forward, but has been the question that I've had is that if these green bins come, can we get the other 2 bins being used so they all look the same? So that could be a bit of a potential at the time too. Yeah, a lot of oldies like that. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Councillor Peter Young.
Yes.
We are just part of the council, and this obviously affects the entire city, so I'm just wondering what information will be provided to the non-committee members of council.
Councillor Cornwell's very interested.
Through you, Madam Chair, the presentation will be in the report that goes to full council, so it's as all of our presentations are, so it's available there. And obviously, if there's some discussion of full council, we can accommodate that as well.
That extra information that we asked for, Director, if that can go to everybody as well. Yeah, great. Okay, thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's fine. I think that it will be included in the minutes, won't it? Director, did you say that? Yeah, it will be.
Yes.
And seconded by Councillor Bowden Lumsden. All those in favour? That's carried. Yes, received the presentation. We're still in open. Before we go to closed, I know there's a general business item that Councillor Gates, I think, might put forward.
And I believe that the minute secretary has it. No? Okay, I'll while looking for it, I'll read it to the committee, and it is that the Director, Gold Coast Water, liaises with the appropriate branches of council to achieve a temporary storage use of a portion of the land at the Helensvale Community Waste and Recycling Centre, Lot 998 on RP 162673. And 2, that it is anticipated the use be made available for service clubs, including Rotary and Lions clubs, together with other community groups in consultation with local councillors. And councillors, I'm moving this general business item today because I have the opportunity to do so, because today I can be considered a member of this committee, but it's actually something that Councillor Owen Jones has primarily been involved with. So I will pass over to Councillor Owen Jones to say a few words.
Okay.
Which I'll do as soon as I have a seconder.
Have you got a seconder? Oh, Councillor Hamill, I think.
I'm not a member
He's
of the committee.
not a member, so I'm
Councillor
moving it.
Hamill.
Just enthusiastic attendee.
Go ahead, Councillor Jones.
So I'm sure, like other councillors, from time to time, you get community groups interested in finding storage locations for various things around the city, and I know that the city has assisted some of those at the old Suntown tip up in the area near the community centre. At the Helensvale Waste Recycle Centre, as you enter on the right-hand side, there used to be a 2-storey house which was demolished, and there's a pad, a concrete, a bit of gravel and concrete, and I think it's probably about 2,000 square metres, which is within the fenced-off area. So I've had approaches from both the Rotary Club of Hope Island and also the Rotary Club of Coomera Valley, looking for places to store, in particular, their sausage sizzle trailers. And this particular area is adjacent to the entry to the Waste Recycle Centre, but it's within the area that creates a natural buffer between the nearest residents and the actual operation of the Waste Recycle Centre. So I'm interested in progressing it further, and not only for the service clubs, but also if there's any other NGOs or not-for-profits that it might make sense to. So not for them to actually do any activity, but just as a potential location for storage, and then that would need to be formalised through arrangements with, property services or whoever.
Director, do you have any comment about that?
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm familiar with the area as described. Obviously, yeah, we'll follow up with property services, what needs to be in place and you know, what sort of security and you know, liability for storage of materials on site, but you know, that can all be investigated.
Yep, I think that's all you're asking. Councillor Gates.
Thanks, Chair. And if I might just add, the Rotary Club of Coomera Valley has a part of Division 3, and so I have been liaising with them as well, and I'm aware that they have grant funding available, so it might be a possibility that there is an interaction with that group regarding the security measures that need to be undertaken. I think their grant funding was possibly for a shed, was it not, Councillor Owen-Jones? And it's been hanging around for a long time, but if we can create a secure area and, you know, there are possibilities that there's grant funding to assist.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to note, we do have regular break-ins at our WRCs, even with our, you know, security at those sites and CCTV cameras. So it is a real issue. But like I said, we can certainly investigate it and you know, have the right understandings and upgrade if we need to.
Yeah. And I think the challenge is wherever we as a city would provide a storage outcome, be it in a park or in a waste recycle centre, they're going to have to take that risk on themselves. What I liked about it is effectively the potential to use a bit of remnant land that the city controls, but it's effectively open 363 days of the year, and I don't imagine it's about nighttime access or anything like that. It's just 7:30 to 4:45 or whatever the time frame was. And as the director will appreciate, it's all part of this one city approach to serving our residents.
Okay. Any other speakers for or against? No? Taken that. All those in favour? What a great idea. That's carried. Thank you. Super majority. No, majority. Unanimous. Okay, councillors, we actually do have one item left and one other presentation, both enclosed, and that's due to commercial. Sorry. Yep. Oh, a grammar? Yeah. Oh no, it's Councillor Gates.
And did you second it? You did. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Oh, I thought there was a grammar mistake there for a minute. I thought.
No. No, it's something I prepared myself earlier. It's perfect.
It's perfect. Okay, so as I was saying, we've got a one other item, the Integrated Recycling and Energy Precinct item, and also a presentation on the strategy renewal of the inlet works at Coomera STP. So it's both in commercial and confidence. So would someone like to move this into close? Councillor Hamill, seconded Councillor McDonald. All those in favour? That's carried. Streaming off, please. the item, 7.1. I've moved it. Councillor Hamill has seconded it. Just a brief word on saying how exciting a project like this could be, and I'm very happy that we've all supported the recommendation to go to full council.
It's better than Lego. It's great.
All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Move back into close now for our presentation. Councillor Peter Young, seconded Councillor Hamill. All those in favour to go in closed? That's carried. We're back to open. I declare the meeting, there's no more items to discuss, no more presentations. Declare the meeting closed at 11. I think we've already done that. Oh, not formally?
No, we moved to open. Councillor
moved to
Young,
open,
myself.
yeah.
I'm not chairing the meeting, but
No. Councillor Peter Young moved that we note the presentation. I thought I seconded it.
great.
And all those in favour? Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's right.
Didn't want to miss that out.
Meeting closed at 3:11. Thank you.